Good morning and welcome to the Future of Employee Experience. I am so happy to have you joining me today. Thank you so much for giving up your time.
Good morning, Sally. I'm also happy to be here with you this morning.
Now, you have had the most unbelievable journey and have worked in so many different places, but I want to just start right back at the beginning and just find a little bit more about you. Where are you from? What shaped your path to where you are now? And what do you love about employee experience?
How much time do you have, Sally?
As long as we need.
Quickly, I am Chwayita. My name is a person name meaning joy. I come from the Eastern Cape in a small rural town called Tala. That is where I was born and bred. And really, that on its own did shape who I am. Growing up in the village, being raised by a loving and doting gran is something to relish. I grew I grew up in the village with everything that a village kid get exposed to, but cushioned by the love and the family structure that my brain brought about. Few lessons. One was around independence, doing everything for yourself. And secondly, was around possibilities, really. And my life story is that of possibility because nothing was apparent where I grew up. We only knew of the traditional professions. I guess it's every rural child's story, but with fewer role models, but really a sheer understanding that there's possibilities and really the belief my brain had in me has shaped the person that I am. And I went out in the world being really assured of who I am, my identity, my grounding, and a lot of help along the way, right? As you see it, I've worked in different environments and private and public environments, really great mentors before mentorship was even fashionable. People who really took sheer interest in what I had to offer and who I am. And that has shaped me in terms of the professional that I've become and really about appreciating and valuing being part of the sum, right? And always appreciating and understanding that some parts are never greater than the sum. So it's always for me that working for organizations that have a greater purpose, bigger than who they are, bigger than individuals. I thrive in that kind of environment. And your last question was, what do I love about employee experience? So for me, employee experience really is the base of everything that we do in the work environment. So in one of my environment, we use the results pyramid. If you picture a pyramid right at the bottom being the experiences of our employees, day-to-day experiences shape our employees' beliefs. And from those beliefs, our employees will act. And from their actions, the organizations will live with results. But the main potent thing about experiences is that they are underneath the surface, if I may. They are like, if you can imagine the iceberg, they are beneath the surface. So they are not seen, they are interpreted on a day-to-day basis. And stories get told out of those experiences at the family braais, at the work canteens, everywhere. How employees experience you is going to be their reality that they will share with others. And others don't need to experience the same to believe that this is how things are done here. So, yeah, that is why for me, employee experience is a key thing.
I think you bring up such a great visual picture when you talk about the iceberg, because I think it also is around that size, right? I mean, I think it's only a quarter of an iceberg or an eighth of an iceberg is seen above the surface. And the employee experience is so big and it's so vast. And it sits there underneath the surface. So if we look at that and we think about employee experience in its totality, I I want to ask you about, how does it start with the HR experience? So let's try and narrow it down. So, when we talk about solving for the why, what are your views around that?
Yeah, as HR professionals, we are very key to the employee experience in the workplace, because it starts with us, right? So in my mind, employee experience is in twofold. It is around transaction with frictionless transaction with HR. I want to know, it should come as natural as breathing, that I would find my payslip, I would get paid at the right date. I don't need to worry about those things, and those little things engender trust, right? So I always say to teams, that experience should be like plumbing. People want to know every time they open a tap, water comes out. They don't need to know what is the connections behind. Yeah. They are really, it's assumed that the connection will work. And therefore, when I open a tap, water must come. So that is the experience. So people should really be delighted to interface with HR when they must transact. But that, for me, that is the opening the door really for us in terms of employee experience. But once that door gets opened, then I call that a quantitative experience. I request this, I get it within this number of times, or just this within this period of time. But also there is qualitative experience there, right? Yeah. Qualitatively, I want the experience that employees want to have, or rather that I would like to create in the environments that I add, is the experience of belonging, experience of being seen as equal, right? Yeah. In the workplace, as a adult that is here to render services, and there is a mutual benefit for me being here. So that is the experience, how I experience my work environment, where I am able to have agency from a point of shared purpose. As I said, for me, it's important to be in organizations that are purpose driven. They are existing for something bigger than just profits. So that is something that grabs and catches the employee experience, and therefore employees would experience you in a particular way. And we've tried in some of my environment in terms of giving our employees agents. So we always say, we try to give meaning to the saying that we want you to bring your whole self at work, right? Because that's where the full experience is when I don't have a work person and a home person, but I can feel free to bring my whole self. And that comes through our diversity, equity, and inclusion thinking. You can see my flag behind me. Because those are some of the tangible things that we get to do. But I think for me, seeing and valuing person at an individual level, and we have used a green light movement really to shine a spotlight in those people's areas where do I sleep? Do I have a bedroom? How many people share one room? And so once you understand those things, for me, from an HR point of view, because when you start getting interested in that, the people's experience changes, right? Because then all of a sudden they tend to realize that you are interested in who they are, and also really generally improving their lives, their day-to-day lives. So that is what moves me in those kind of environments. So once you do that, how that helps improve experience down the line. So once you've collected that data in terms of what are the people's socio-economic environments, South Africa, unfortunately, is a country of a huge divide between the haves and nots. And I think we can't fool ourselves and say minimum wage addresses the ills. We know what is happening out there, so we're not even scratching the surface. But how do we help our employees to have agency in their lives and in the organizations that they work for, because they are able to open up certain doors in terms of thinking, in terms of taking shared responsibility of our own circumstances and improve them as such. So once you do that, the data you collect from there is so invaluable in terms of working with what I term your infrastructure, organizational infrastructure. In the infrastructure, we have benefits, we have policies, we have all those things. And sometimes the policymakers are not necessarily your employee on the ground. So they have a particular view in terms of how things should be. But this data collects for you or gives insights into what really matters for your own employees. So you can tweak and make your infrastructure relevant to where your employees are. So yeah, that is what that means for me, what employee experience means at those different levels, qualitatively and quantitatively.
So, and you know that I love the Green Light Project, and I love the fact that it is a data-driven approach, and that you are getting people you're giving them agency, and you're getting them involved in solving problems, and in I guess completely shifting their belief system around the fact that they can make an impact not only in their own lives, but in those of the community and those of the company. Okay. So can I ask you to just, for people that haven't heard about it before, just unpack it a little bit as to what the project is and how it works, and how how you're linking those data pieces to the benefits, because I think that's such a key part of how you're linking the infrastructure to the data that you're collecting and sort of what you're doing with it, because it's quite a revolutionary approach, and it's something that I think a lot of companies should be looking into.
It's quite revolutionary, Sally. So we're working with a provider that is using the matrix from Greenlight, and the indicators, all the social indicators. So we kind of embark on a 20-week program, and it's completely voluntary. So associates or employees will lift their hand and say, I want to be part of this movement. So what then we do is we select one for us. People can do it differently. I'm sure my service provider can speak, and I can share through you their details. We'll speak eloquently on the program. But what we have decided in my organization to do is to take one of the employees to be the facilitator, upskill them to be the facilitator. So for the first time, they get together during lunchtime or before they start their shift, talking around these areas. So we would have done a baseline assessment of where people are, how they feel on these areas, and how they relate. I mean, it's like how we handle our finances, our health issues, drug abuse, just sheer well-being, sheer indicators that contribute to the entire well-being of our associates. Because what we see at a well-being level is almost an outcome of everything else that is not working underneath. So this program helps us get to the level just beneath the surface to understand what is happening, not for us, but for the employees to, for the first time, talk about it, give it name, give it environment, give it a space to breathe. And as it does that, people start solving their own problems amongst themselves. So what then gets to happen from there, for instance, there's a huge focus on, do you budget, do you have savings? How much are you able to save, and all those things. So to your point, all organizations, all good organizations will have EAP programs, right? Yeah. Sure. So from our EAP program, and when we have implemented an EAP program, we feel we have addressed employee well-being. Yeah, it's not enough. In there, exactly, because in there is counseling services, there's budget services, legal services. So they must just call the number and stuff would work. But what I've found, I think can bear me out, even the EAP providers themselves will show very low take up stats on these things, because unless there's a traumatic event, people can relate. But when they are living day to day, the connection is not there. So these conversations through this, we call our program Build My Life. Yes. Because that's how personal it is. That's how big it is. It is around building my own life through understanding the fundamentals and working on them. So as we work through those things, as we have the conversations, we are able to pinpoint that actually the problem, yes, the salary and how big or small it is will always be affected. But truth is, you can have millions. If you don't budget and use that amount wisely, you're gonna end up in the deficit, right? So then all of a sudden that facilitator of this session is no financial guru, right? But
Sure.
now they are able to say, let me link you to somebody from our EAP that can help you formulate a budget. Then all of a sudden there is a connection that is made between my plight and what the organization offers. And inadvertently the usage goes up. So for me, that is a subsequence that the usage goes up. So for me, those are the things that really move me in terms of really being there for our people at the time that matters, at the moment. There are moments of truth, because chances are you don't know what you don't know.
Of course.
All I know is that my money doesn't stretch, and I do not think that it is about something that must happen before the money lands on my hand. And this program helps us do that connection. And it is around really bringing the locus of control back to internal, where people are really feel empowered to craft their destinies. And the feedback we're getting, to my point, of experiences that impact the results. The business indicators are just going green all the time. The line managers are so happy because the people that were on the verge of being disciplined and fired have just turned overnight because a penny has dropped through the conversation, through understanding what they are carrying to the workplace. Some of our associates have left abusive relationships. Wow. Where they were, it's that transformational. Yeah. And for me, that's the kind, to your point, that this program is not really about our employees. It's about what they take out. It's not about their experience, but it's what they take out to the communities, because we are really islands, right? We live and belong in communities, and we are so interconnected in many different ways.
And I think you've made such a great point there around that you cannot outsource, your employee experience and your employee wellness, and you cannot outsource that. You actually have to go the opposite way, and you have to bring it right in and create the space for those conversations, for the empowerment of your people to actually sit and discuss how are these things landing with you? What tools and benefits do we have? Linking them to the resources in a proactive way. I think that's really amazing. So, how do you then take that data? And I mean, I'm so pleased to hear the lights are going green everywhere. That's amazing. And how do you use that data to link to the infrastructure then? Are you saying, okay, cool, in this area, we're seeing a surge of, perhaps you said, abusive relationships, gender-based violence particularly, and are you then able to deploy different remedies or assistance to those areas? Are you making more data-driven decisions now, do you think?
Certainly, we are. I'm not going to say we are maturing, but we are on our way there. So sure. What we are trying to work with now with customer office is around those insights of our employees from particular environments are also helping us understand the customer there even better. Because our customers, and as we say, we come from interconnected communities. So if our associates their experience is XY, probably our customers is not very far off as well.
Exactly.
So that also brings about different customer solutions in the work environment as you bring about different solutions for your employees in your employee infrastructure world. So this helps us now not to spray and hope that everybody is going through the same thing at the same time in the same measures. So now we are able to tailor our solutions and our initiatives. So that is bringing about a lot of efficiencies as well, because before you kind of roll out what feels nice and say, I've talked to these people, it is the problem, therefore this is the solution. But now our solutions are bottoms up, if you may. So we are trying to work with what we're finding on the ground and assisting employees, but also it helps us, I think, build my life, because it brings about agency, it brings about responsibility where it belongs. So you find yourself being able to be moved as an organization from a paternalistic approach that seems to be solving on behalf of the people, but solving with them, because it is their lives and you treat them as adults and you just assist where you can. But on the main, it remains their own lives, and that you are just helping in terms of furthering.
I think that's I was going to bring up the paternalistic thing a little bit earlier on, but I think that is the power of bringing that experience into the people, because it also just starts to make, again, business sense, because now you're saying, you're looking at budgeting at your own home life. We're not telling you how to do it or what to do. Suddenly budgeting, when we're asking you to have a look at cutting back or saving for the business, starts to make a lot more sense, because it's now what's happening at work is being mirrored in your personal life, and it starts to sort of fit together. But I want to go back to, because you have for my first time in 3 years, really, really clearly articulated for everybody how spending money on your employee experience directly impacts the data that you hold on your customer. And this is a constant struggle that I find in employee experiences, is everyone's asking about, it's the rands and cents. How do we justify the spend and the return on employee experience? So I'm going to ask you to just return back to that and just talk again about how understanding your people are giving you the insights to understand your customer better, and how you're seeing that play out, because that link from EX and CX, I mean, you're talking about the human experience ultimately. We are exactly that. We are all people and we're all experiencing the same thing. So please, I'm going to, for the people at the back, please just tell us one more time how you're doing that linking, because it was so nicely done.
I think for me, the biggest thing is that, firstly, it starts with understanding and appreciating at a deeper level that there can never be, especially if you are in my industry, there can never be great customer experience without great employee experience. Because the experience is formed up of many things, but heavily proportioned towards the human interaction.
Yeah.
You can have a great store, great merchandise. If you don't meet, I mean, we respond to human cues, we respond to smiles, we respond to being welcomed in spaces and made to feel as such. Otherwise, we might as well go somewhere on virtual platforms, right?
Yeah.
So when you have that environment, that experience is key. I can't be worried about my pay slip and my overtime being paid and still smile for the customer and give my utmost best. So that's the first thing. But then when it comes to understanding and what talks to the customer in an environment, so the data that you collect from your people is, because Greenlight is helping us not only talk to them about what they experience in the workplace, but it's what they experience back at home.
Yeah.
It checks, it asks them things like, how long does it take you to come to work? So in there lies your solutions if you are in a particular business, because if people in this environment travel X amount of kilometers to go to work, therefore certain things, certain solutions may be available for them, certain problems are there. If they are battling with running water, so those have become your solutions in the workplace in terms of, if you are a retail company, how do I really play big on the water conservation space and making such solutions available for the people in these communities. So I'm saying you do not replace your customer insights with your employee insights, but it is an additional data point in terms of extending it, because more often than not, we check the customer experience when they came to the shop, but we really, because of the nature of the relationship, we really tap into their personal lives and how they experience it. So your employee experience brings you that data in terms of what is happening in the communities that they live in. Some of the things may not be impacting them directly, but the communities. So that is a data point that I think we would never have had if we were not having this kind of program or so obsessed about employee experience.
I'm going to cut this, and then I'm just going to play this at the start of any of my employee experience pitches so that I can explain to everyone really nicely. And then I'll make an arrangement with you about commission at the end there. But thank you that you've finally done the whole story so beautifully around linking those
Thanks,
two.
Billy.
So we'll have a chat about commission. But now I want to ask you, I mean, this is a relatively new area, employee experience, and there are a lot of people moving into the field. If you had to, taking the insights that you've had and where you've moved to and all the progress that you've seen over the last few years, what advice would you give to people that are moving into this industry and say to them, like, this is something that you should start looking at or studying or getting involved in? I mean, what do you think are like key attributes that people wanting to work in employee experience should look at?
I think for me, it is so linked to the organizational purpose on your why to exist as an organization. Okay. So I guess we just need to unpack that a little in terms of how do you see yourself as organizations? And I think COVID and many other calamities have kind of taught us that we are no islands, right? We exist within an ecosystem, and our success is dependent on a healthy ecosystem. So whether it's your left to your or to your left or to your right, how do you impact those interfaces? So for me, once you understand that, and as you are saying, employee experience and customer experience is really human experience. Yeah. And humans is who we do business with, whether they are working with us or whether they are buying stuff from us. So how do we make that experience great for all parties? Because when that experience is great, that's where loyalties get created. That's where trust gets created. That's where repeated business come from. So I think for me is not a strategic enabler any longer. It is a strategic priority to talk about human experience and breaking it into customer and employee experience. We started recently, we're starting our meetings with what is the customer experience, and I'm wanting to bring in that conversation right at the beginning, the voice of the employee. What is the employee experience as we look at it, because one cannot exist without the other, right? So I think for me, it's almost as you're setting out and you're starting out and making your strategic priorities, just make your human experience one of your strategic pillars, because that's the only way you can be able to transact and transform businesses.
So if you had to give leaders in this space, current leaders, one piece of advice that you'd ask them to implement today, what would that be to create the human experience or to start to bring it into their organizations? What would be that one thing that you think they should do?
I think for me, in the similar spirit and similar energy, we are interested to hear what our customers say. We should be interested to hear what our people are saying and do something about it. Not only hear them, but do something about it, because once we do that, great things happen. In one of the testimonials of our Build My Life program, one employee says, when I'm happy, my customers are happy. Yep. Because it's just contagious, right? You're just prepared to go an extra mile for your customers. And we get it in terms of customer comments, how happy employees make happy customers. So for me, I think the times of us thinking, because the competition in the business environment is so great, right? What differentiates you from your competition most of the time is not the products you are selling or the solutions you are bringing, but it's the experience they get and how they feel when they are in your business or in your environment as an employer. As the famous Maya Angelou saying, as people will forget how you treated them, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So it's that feeling, it's that nostalgic feeling, it's yearning for the feeling, it's yearning for the experience in the environment that will determine the attitude with which I come back to work the following day, but that which will influence the attitude with which the customers come to your environment the next time they need products.
I always think it's almost like when you have a great experience with in a customer engagement, you're putting money in that kind of trust account, and then when things don't necessarily happen well with the business, or there's a service issue or something, a withdrawal is made from that account. But provided you've had enough good experiences, then even if there are a few withdrawals every now and again, the overall account balance is still positive. And I think that mindset also works for your employee, building that trust. Every single interaction, every time you, treat your people well, every morning when you greet them with respect, when you make them feel like they belong, when you really genuinely ask, how are you? You're putting money into your trust account with your people. And, when you need to ask a big ask, you make a withdrawal, but you've got to try and keep that positive balance going at all times.
Beautifully said, Sally. It's always that. And I find people, and especially South Africans, they're forgiving people, right?
Yes.
But provided the bank balance isn't positive, right? And you can't. So they will forgive you on your bad day, provided you have done some good deposits
over time. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just realizing that's for all of us, and you're right, though, we are forgiving people, but we're also just, we're such a friendly people. It's, there's so many opportunities for us to be making positive deposits for both our people and our customers. And it really just makes sense to do that,
And for me, this employee experience is never a difficult thing, right? Because I always say to my teams, just do what's right by the people.
Yeah.
That's all. And they say, for some reasons, if your memory fails you in terms of remembering what's right, just do what you would like to be done unto you, period.
Absolutely. It really is just that. It's just, just treat each other like you'd like to be treated.
Indeed.
And tell me, how can our listeners engage with you further? How can they hear more about you? Is LinkedIn the best? Is there a specific platform that you're on that's something people can follow?
I think LinkedIn is the best for now, and I try to have some little women circles in my workplace, and that's about it. I am not really in any platforms that one can follow, but if people must reach out, I'm sure my emails and my LinkedIn is the best way to get hold of me. I respond to all my LinkedIn messages.
Wow, that's a good. That's a big one. I'm sure you get a lot.